This is my video update from Moscow, Russia on this Tuesday morning, July the 18th. Right now I am at the Stancja Lubyanka. Right behind me is the FSB building here in Lubyanka. So they're watching and listening to everything that we're going to say in this video. So let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the grain deal update. And as I reported on from Chisty Prudi yesterday in my video, Russia has pulled itself out of the grain deal. Well, not pulled itself out. It has let the grain deal expire, and it is not going to renew it. And this was expected, given what happened yesterday towards the Crimea bridge. And as I said in my video yesterday as well, the entire collective West is now upset with Russia. They're absolutely shocked and mad and angry that Russia would do such a thing like pulling out of the grain deal, letting the grain deal expire. I always say pulling out of the grain deal. You see the propaganda, it works. It works. Russia let the grain deal expire and they're not going to renew it. That's the proper way of explaining what has happened. But the collective West, they're very upset. Kaluba, the foreign minister of Ukraine, is saying that what Russia's doing is a horrible thing. And Zelensky put out a tweet, and he said that Ukraine's going to continue to try and get the grain to those who need it, to the poor nations who need it. And he said that 400 million people are now at risk of starving because of Russia's actions. UN Secretary General Guterres was disappointed that Russia's not renewing the grain deal. Ursula von der Crazy. This is what she said in a tweet yesterday. I strongly condemn Russia's cynical move to terminate the Black Sea Grain Initiative, despite UN and Turkey's efforts. EU is working to ensure food security for the world's vulnerable. EU solidarity lanes will continue bringing agri-food products out of Ukraine. Solidarity lanes. They love them hashtags, don't they? And then she says they're going to bring food to the global market and the global world and whatever. The thing was so simple to solve. The EU, the collective West, Joe Biden could have picked up the phone, called up Zelensky, and he could have said, Zelensky, it's really important for us to make sure that the grain gets delivered to the countries that need it. So don't use the grain deal corridors to attack Crimea. That is all they had to do. Tell Zelensky to stop launching attacks towards Crimea. And he would have stopped. But that's not what they did. They encouraged Zelensky to launch attacks towards Crimea under the cover of the grain corridor protection. And they even provided drone reconnaissance. Remember the drone that the Russians hit, when was it, like 3-4 months ago? What do you think those drones were doing? They were checking out what's going on in Crimea, looking for vulnerable spots. And then Zelensky was using the safety provided from the grain deal to launch attacks towards Crimea. Anyway, our thoughts and prayers go out to the 14-year-old girl who is in intensive care. from the attack on the bridge. And her parents did die. And it's a horrible thing that happened yesterday, killing these civilians. For what? So that they can now get onto the media channels and say that Russia is starving the world, or so that the Zelensky regime can somehow once again try to goad NATO into entering the conflict in Ukraine. Because that's what they want to do. Zelensky would love to send a ship out from Odessa and to have some sort of missile strike or even a false flag to hit the ship or damage the ship or damage the port in Odessa. And then Zelensky can say that Russia is hitting food supplies that are meant to go to the world, and we need NATO to step in, and NATO has to come in and protect the world's food supplies and stuff like that. He would love to do that. That's the whole purpose of what's going on. That's why they made sure yesterday, by attacking the Kerch Bridge, they made sure that Russia was not going to renew the grain deal. That's exactly what happened yesterday. There was, Russia was hinting, maybe we'll stay in the grain deal if you guys, honor this agreement and that promise. Maybe we'll work with you. I mean, no one was really sure if Russia was going to pull out or not. Most people were leaning towards Russia not renewing the grain deal. I said it again, pull out. If Russia was going to pull out of the grain deal. Most of the people were leaning towards Russia not renewing the grain agreement. But there was still some doubt. And even the Kremlin was like, we're still open to working things out. There's still a window of opportunity. That attack on the Crimea bridge was meant to slam the door shut on any possibilities of the grain deal renewal. And they don't honor their agreements. They don't honor their agreements, the collective West. You had the Minsk agreements, they didn't honor that, and they used the Minsk agreements so that they can build up the Ukraine military and eventually start a conflict with Russia, provoke Russia into this conflict. They didn't honor their NATO promise, not 1 inch east, the promise that Baker made way back when, and Zelensky was running around saying before the special military operation, a year leading up to the special military operation, Zelensky was running around saying that Ukraine's going to join NATO and Ukraine's going to get nuclear weapons. And Russia kept on telling the collective West, tell Zelensky to stop, tell Zelensky to shut up, tell Zelensky to not say that he's going to get nukes. And the collective West was like, no, he's not going to get nukes, don't worry about it. And then when Zelensky's hanging out with them, they're like, yeah, Zelensky, you're going to get nukes. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm exaggerating things a bit, but they don't honor any of their agreements. And the same thing for the grain deal. They had an agreement and they didn't honor it. And they used the grain deal to launch attacks. And now they're upset with Russia. Just so we understand things. The collective West now is upset with Russia because Russia is not going to renew the grain deal because the collective West, Ukraine, is using the grain deal to attack Russia. Russia, renew the grain deal so we can continue to attack you. How dare you? How dare you do not renew the grain deal and prevent us from attacking you? Oh boy. And they wanted to end the grain deal. When I say they, I mean the collective West, the EU, the United States. And I'll tell you another reason why, I believe, another reason why they wanted Russia to not renew the grain deal and to blame it on Russia. It's Russia's fault that the grain deal's not getting renewed. Because before, when the grain deal was still in place, the grain was really not making it to the countries that needed it. I remember Putin in a speech, if you believe Putin's numbers, but I remember in a speech he gave, I think it was Valdai, he said that only 3% of the grain leaving the Odessa port is actually making it to the poor countries that need it. And the rest of the grain is going to the rich countries, going to the West, going to Europe. So Europe was taking the grain from Ukraine, buying the grain, and then they were using that money to, well, buy homes, but they were then using the money for weapons to Ukraine in order to arm Ukraine and to fund Ukraine so they could fight Russia. That's what they were doing. So 3% of the grain, if you believe what Putin said, 3% of the grain from Ukraine was actually going to the countries that needed it. The rest of it was being purchased by Europe, and that money that was coming to the Zelensky regime was being used to fund the war, the proxy war against Russia. And then Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, I believe Greece as well. What happened like a month or two ago? They started to block the food from Ukraine going into those countries. So the grain deal kind of became useless for the European Union. And Zelensky couldn't really, get the grain. Now, this is how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were moving the grain over rail, but I think that they weren't able to get as much money from the grain into Ukraine from Europe. And so I think that Europe and the US said, we're getting problems from Eastern Europe. We're getting problems from Poland, Greece, Romania, Bulgaria with the quality of the grain coming from Ukraine. It's better to just end the grain deal, but let's not have us end it because that'll look bad. Let's send another attack towards Crimea. We'll get Russia to not renew the grain deal. Then we'll blame it on Russia, and we'll make them out to be the bad guys. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, or maybe I'm not seeing it correctly. But I think the collective West, they absolutely wanted this grain deal to end, because it was of no use to them, and they just had to find a way to pin the blame on Russia. And so they launched the attack towards Crimea, or they greenlit Zelensky's attack on the bridge, the Kerch Bridge. The media asked Kirby if the U.S. was now going to move ships into the Black Sea and to protect the grain that was leaving, and so far the White House is like, no chance of that happening. So they're like, no, we're not going to blockade the Black Sea. We're not going to move in to protect the ships that could be leaving from Odessa carrying grain. And so, from what I understand, at this moment, no ships have left the Odessa port, because Russia, in a statement that they made yesterday, they said that they consider now this entire area to be a type of conflict zone. Let me see if I have the exact wording that the foreign ministry put out. I'm kind of winging this video, by the way. I didn't really prepare so much for this video. I just kind of read all the news topics, synthesized them, and sat down here to shoot this video. What Russia said is that they're restoring the regime of a temporarily dangerous area in the northwestern Black Sea. So yeah, Russia considers this corridor now to be a dangerous zone. And so yesterday there was missile attacks in Odessa. I believe they actually hit the Odessa, the port, or the port area. So Odessa is now going to be targeted by the Russian military, or at least the areas of Odessa which are storing weapons or smuggling weapons or being used to attack Crimea. Those are now going to be legitimate targets. And Kaluba, I believe Kaluba, the foreign minister, I always mess up his name, Kuleba or Kaluba. I always think of Kalua when I say his name. But the foreign minister of Ukraine, when they asked him about hitting civilian infrastructure, he was like, I don't consider the Crimea bridge to be civilian infrastructure because it's being used to move weapons, he said. But that's not true. Russia moves all its weapons via rail, I believe, adjacent to the bridge. The bridge is absolutely um, civilian infrastructure. From what I understand, it's cars that pass over the bridge, cars and trucks, but not the weapons. The weapons are moving by rail, which is how it's done. That's how weapons are moved. So, trying to see what else do I have to talk about. Right now, I am on Nikolskaya Street, Ulica Nikolskaya, which is one of my favorites, perhaps my most favorite ulica in Russia. And actually, this street will take us to Red Square. So I haven't been to Red Square yet since I arrived, and we might as well make our way over there and discuss some more news. All right, I've got my clown worlds queued up. My clown worlds I've got queued up here. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say about the grain deal and what's going on. Putin convened a meeting of the Security Council in Russia yesterday, and they're going to retaliate. I think Putin just came out and said they're definitely not going to leave this unanswered. He's like, we are going to retaliate. So what we saw yesterday hitting Odessa, the port, I don't think that was the retaliation. That just may be the beginning of the retaliation. Remember last time when they hit the bridge, the first time they hit the Kerch Bridge, it took Russia 72 hours for their response. So we've got a couple more days for what I believe will be the response, and I'm expecting them to hit decision-making centers. That's what I think they're going to hit. What those decision-making centers will be, I don't know, but I think in a day or two, we will find out. There are videos of cars now passing over the bridge, so traffic has resumed across the bridge as well. So, as expected, the government fixed up the bridge. At least they got it to a point where traffic could resume again, and they're going to repair the damaged parts of the bridge. I had in my video yesterday, my opening intro, I had a video which showed the actual damage to the bridge. So, do I have anything else to talk about today before I get on to my clown world? Jake Sullivan, he gave an interview yesterday to, I believe, CBS, I think, either CBS or NBC, doesn't matter, they're all the same. and they asked him about a potential conflict with Russia, the U.S. going to war with Russia, with NBC. He gave the interview to NBC, and they asked him about Russia's red lines. And Sullivan just came out and said, we're not ready to go to war with Russia. He said, at the very beginning of this conflict, President Biden outlined the American position. American troops will not fight Russian troops in Ukraine or anywhere else. And we followed these main commandments throughout the conflict. And as the conflict has evolved, the nature of our assistance to Ukraine has evolved with it. And of course, along the way, we learned what is possible and what is not. The main position boils down to one clear point. Namely, we are going to support Ukraine without American soldiers fighting Russian ones. And this will remain consistent throughout the entire course of the conflict. So that's what Sullivan told Chucky Todd of NBC News. And Sullivan's a campaign guy, so he's always thinking in terms of the election and Biden's presidential campaign, and he understands that a Russian-U.S. war would sink Biden's re-election hopes. He understands that, and so the U.S. is going to fight this conflict via proxy. That's how they're going to do this thing. They're going to continue to fight Russia via proxy, and then they're going to come out with statements and say we're not a party to this war. Right? They attack the Kerch Bridge, or they provide the reconnaissance and the information to attack the Kerch Bridge, the surveillance to hit it, but they're not a party to this war. I believe the foreign ministry, Zakharova, actually came out with a statement, and I think she blamed the UK and the US. I could be wrong about that, but I remember reading on Telegram that Zakharova was like, this has the fingerprints of the US and the UK all over it. Oh boy. And they're going to blame Russia for not renewing the grain deal. That's going to be the result of all of this. All right. We're approaching Red Square. So should we do some clown worlds? I don't think I have any more stories to discuss this morning. I have to confirm this, so I'm not quite sure. But there is a report from French TV LCI which says that Poland and the Baltic nations are preparing to send troops to Ukraine. Is that true? I need to research that a bit, but that's not a good development. That's not good at all. Okay. I have a question for everyone before I do my clown world and wrap up this video. Where does the whole Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe or the breadbasket of the world come from? The last I read, Ukraine was, I believe, number 7 when it came to food exports, or at least grain exports. And I think that Russia's number 1, actually. So I'm just trying to figure out, where has this whole narrative of being the breadbasket of the world, where does that originate from? Because if you talk about feeding the world or grain exports, I think Russia is top of the list. And when it comes to like agriculture and food, the Netherlands is like number 2, isn't it? So the EU, they were buying the grain from Ukraine, and at the same time, they were shutting down farmers in the Netherlands. And from what I understand, they're trying to shut down farmers in Ireland as well. You see? They were up to all kinds of no good with this grain deal, the European Union. And then I think Poland and Bulgaria and Romania and all these countries said, we don't want this grain. And that's when I think everything started to unravel. That's my hunch. When they started to put a blockade on the grain, the food from Ukraine entering Europe, that's when I think the whole thing was over, the entire grain deal. And they were just looking for a way to end the grain deal without having to take the blame for it. I don't know what happened, but that's my feeling on things. And they were preventing their own farmers from producing food. All right, let's do a clown world here as we are on Red Square. We'll talk about clown world number one, which is from the Daily Mail. Putin planning to use Wagner fighters to invade key strategic strip of land straddling border between Poland and Lithuania in move against NATO's Baltic states. Crony reveals. This was posted on the 16th of July, updated on the 17th of July. That's Collective West Media for you. I can't wait to see the headlines today on the grain deal and how evil Putin is. Putin's going to use Wagner to steal the grain from Ukraine and to transport it to his oligarch friends. I don't know. I'm just thinking on the top of my head of some of the crazy posts that they're going to come up with. Oh, boy. Should we walk to St. Basil's? Let's walk to St. Basil's and to the GOOM department store. And let's do a final clown world and we'll wrap this video up. This has been a very unstructured video. Not that my videos are structured. I don't have a script or anything, so I'm just kind of winging it most of the times, but today I was winging it more than other times. Respublika Krym. Huh. Respublika Krym. So the final clown world is that for the last 10 years, the US military was sending emails to Mali instead of other military email addresses because they got the domain name confused. They confused .mil for military with .ml for Mali. The interesting part is that I believe Mali is actually a good friend of Russia's. So they have all of these emails from the U.S. Defense Department and from the military, which was meant for internal use. They got sent over to Mali. And I think this was for like the last 10 years. And they finally noticed it. Oh, boy. All right, that's my clown world, everybody. That is the video coming to you from Red Square, St. Basil's Cathedral. The Duran.locals.com. Let's go to the clock. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. And go to the Duran shop. Pick up a t-shirt. I'm wearing my Greek Duran t-shirt while I'm here in Moscow. 10% off. Use the code Good Day. Take care.